and on demand. All together, all in one place for you to enjoy.
It's whatever kind of adventure we want it to be.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I'm Sharon Tazwell. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. The Department of Justice released a trove of files Friday related to the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein. The convicted sex offender and wealth financier was known for his connections to some of the world's most influential people. Among the thousands of records released are photos, call logs, grand jury testimony, and also interview transcripts. Many have been redacted, and some have already been public domain.
This, for many of them, has been a lifetime struggle, and certainly it's not going to come to an end today.
New details coming to light following the end of a days-long manhunt for the man behind the Brown University mass shooting. The suspect, a 48-year-old former student, was found dead after taking his own life. Investigators say a campus custodian and an anonymous Reddit post helped narrow down the search for the suspect. Police say he was sophisticated in hiding his tracks, adding the gunman used an untraceable phone and avoided using credit cards in his own name. And the holiday travel rush is underway as Americans across the country gear up for Christmas and the New Year, and it's expected to be the busiest on record. AAA projects more than 122 million people will travel from now until January 1st. Over 8 million people are expected to fly within the United States. And that is a look at your Spectrum News in 90.
Meteorologist Alan August here with you with a check of your weather on the ones. A milder pattern for much of the nation. Now, far to the north, it's still cold, feels like winter. Lake effect snow, we're tracking that into the beginning of the weekend. And rain and snow will continue for the Pacific Northwest, even into California. We'll talk about the details coming up with your weather on the ones in this half hour.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. This program focuses on the future of our country and its people. A great many of the political stories we have covered throughout 2025 centered on President Donald Trump. He returned to the White House and on day one signed a blizzard of executive orders in January that pardoned more than 1,000 people who had stormed the Capitol. Other orders began to remake part of the government and dismantle entire agencies. But the performance of the economy this year has been the big deal. And 2025 is ending with concerns about inflation, budget reductions, the effect of tariffs, and major cutbacks in support for health insurance. The economic problems have caused the president's poll numbers to fall, with Republicans fearing they will lose control of at least one house of Congress next November. Spectrum News national political reporter Taylor Poplar starts off with this report.
The year began with Donald Trump completing his political comeback and claiming a mandate for change.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Armed with the conservative blueprint, Project 2025, he wasted no time. On day one, he pardoned the more than 1,500 people charged with storming the Capitol. He sealed the southern border and authorized ICE raids and mass deportations. And he tapped billionaire Elon Musk to lead a government cost-cutting blitz called DOGE. Trump signed a record number of executive orders, enacting huge chunks of his campaign platform and erasing much of President Joe Biden's legacy. He repealed regulations, boosted oil and gas drilling, and banned DEI programs. Then Trump upended the global economy by imposing sweeping tariffs on imports from most countries.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
It triggered nation-by-nation negotiations and a legal challenge heard by the Supreme Court.
If we don't have tariffs, we don't have national security.
The president and Musk oversaw the mass firings of federal workers, the shutdown of agencies, and huge cuts to foreign aid, triggering nationwide protests. The two men then had a public falling out.
Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore. I was surprised.
Trump deployed the National Guard to several cities, mostly over the protests of local leaders. 2 Guard members were shot, one of them killed, just 2 blocks from the White House on Thanksgiving Eve.
And we will not be deterred from the mission these service members were so nobly fulfilling.
The Republican-controlled Congress allowed the tariffs to stand and rubber-stamped legislation known as the Big Beautiful Bill, cutting taxes and health care and enacting much of the Trump agenda.
The motion is adopted.
But as the summer ended, the president faced fierce headwinds. After vowing to release the government's files on sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, he said folks should move on.
We're trying to somehow tie President Trump to the scandal. President Trump has nothing to do with it.
But enough House Republicans wanted them released, ensuring the bill would pass. Trump flip-flopped again, agreeing to it. The Epstein debate unfolded during a record 43-day government shutdown over expiring health insurance subsidies. The shutdown ended without a deal, but Republicans appeared to pay a political price for opposing the aid.
The American people know that Donald Trump and Republican control of the House and the Senate has been a disaster for them.
In October, millions turned out for so-called No Kings protests to push back on the president's agenda. And in November, Democrats scored surprising election wins by focusing on affordability. The president largely dismissed anxiety about the economy.
Affordability is a hoax that was started by Democrats.
He also faced criticism for renovating the White House by paving over the Rose Garden and knocking down the East Wing to build a ballroom.
It'll be the most beautiful ballroom anywhere in the world, I think.
The president also turns 80 in June and is facing increased questions about his health that he waves off. Reporting at the White House, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
Joining me now with more are 3 top political analysts. Susan Arbetter is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Albany, New York. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Columbus, Ohio. And Alex Cohen is a political anchor for Spectrum News Plus based in Southern California. Curtis, let me start with you. Recent polls show that most Americans do not approve of how President Trump is handling the economy. Thanks to tariffs, we've got continued high prices. How are people feeling in the Midwest?
I think the best way to probably get that answer, Errol, is to take a look at the latest Emerson College poll, and it shows that President Trump's approval rating is at 46%. He's down 3 points since August. The number one issue for Ohioans, the economy. And here's where tariffs come into play. Yes, the president likes to point out that you paid less for your Thanksgiving turkey this year, but staples are still up. And if you look at something like canned goods, this is where tariffs becomes a very big issue here. The 10 mil still production that's used to make the cans for food in the United States is only at 20%. We get the rest of it from Canada, Germany, and China. These are targets of the president's tariffs. So when you start to pay 89 cents for a can of tuna, 39 cents for a can of soup, frustration builds with every trip to the grocery store. Something else to take into consideration here is wage growth. It's been stagnant because of tariffs and the uncertainty that they create. If you look at the situation before Liberation Day, we were seeing wage growth at somewhere around anywhere from 1.4 to 1.8%. Now for the year, for 12 months, largely because of tariffs, we're at 0.8%. So people are paying more and they're making less. That's the same situation that they had under Biden, and they're looking at things and they're not seeing them change. Hence why some people are looking at the president and wondering what's going on. Why aren't you doing what you said you were going to do? Why aren't we seeing some of the payoff from tariffs like you promised? And instead, we're in the same situation we were a year ago.
Okay. And so now, Alex, at the same time, we've seen a lot of restlessness in the Republican base. Is the president's MAGA coalition actually falling apart at this point?
Well, Errol, as Curtis just stated, there's a big difference between being a candidate on the campaign trail and actually being in office and having to make good on some of your promises. And when he was running for re-election, then candidate Donald Trump promised so many different things to so many different people within the GOP. And now it's a bit hard to try to appease all of those factions. We have seen the recent rift between him and Congressmember Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've seen backlash over his recent comments about the murder of Rob Reiner and his wife from folks like Thomas Massie. We've seen legislators in Indiana say no thanks to Donald Trump's demands about trying to redistrict in favor of the Republicans there. So we're really beginning to see some of these rifts, not just within the wider orbit of the Republican Party, but also within the administration itself. Many were truly shocked to see some of the remarks made by Chief of Staff Susie Wiles in a series of interviews with Vanity Fair that emerged this week. We have seen the president and his allies coalesce around that and saying that some of those remarks, likening Donald Trump's personality to that of an alcoholic, is taken out of context. But this definitely is harkening back more to President Trump era 1.0, his first 4 years in office, where we saw a lot of turbulence within his own administration era.
Okay, so now, Susan, are Democrats in a position to take advantage of these stumbles by the White House?
Well, Errol, that remains to be seen. In the past, we've discussed the divisions in the Democratic Party between old guard moderates and younger, more left-leaning progressives. Those divisions have only gotten more defined. Remember, Ronald Reagan used to say the 11th commandment is thou shalt not speak ill of your fellow Republican. Well, Democrats apparently dropped that tablet because they speak ill a lot. And lately, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is the topic of some of those conversations. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that at least 11 House Democrats, 11 progressive nonprofits, and 6 Democratic Senate candidates have called on Schumer to step down as leader. But there could be a reprieve for Schumer over the next few months. He's a very astute politician. Also, he's got an ally in his Brooklyn colleague, Hakeem Jeffries. Jeffries has successfully and repeatedly been able to put the GOP on the defensive when it comes to things like affordability, like Jeffrey Epstein, the Obamacare subsidies. So when Congress returns in January, the Senate is going to have to deal with the House's discharge petition on the ACA. And I think Schumer has an opportunity to do the same thing as Jeffries, but in the upper chamber. Okay, let's pause right there, folks. Coming up, we will talk about some of the biggest political contests that are shaping up around the country next year. That's next on The Big Deal.
Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different. I had a very successful career. Life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally. And then I got hurt. I dug into mental health. I wanted to be better as a person. I start my day with a workout. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019.
I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Back with the big deal. Next year, voters across the country will head to the ballot box to make their voices heard. As specified in the Constitution, all 435 seats of the U.S. House of Representatives will be up for election, and 35 of the Senate's 100 seats will also be on the ballot. At the state level, 36 states and the U.S. territories will be holding gubernatorial elections. That includes 19 sitting governors who are seeking another term, while 20 will be either leaving office due to term limits or by choice. With a preview of some of these races, I'm joined by a panel of Spectrum News political anchors. Alex Cohen in Southern California, Susan Arbetter in Albany, New York, Curtis Jackson joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Now, Alex, California's governor, Gavin Newsom, is term limited, so he'll be leaving an open seat. I imagine there's probably a crowded field that wants to succeed him, right?
That's correct. Upwards of a dozen candidates, Errol. And here's the interesting thing. In many states, Democrats vote on their top candidate, Republicans vote on theirs, and then those two face off in a general election. For more than 14 years now, we have had a system here known as the top two primary, which means the top two vote getters, regardless of political preference, are the ones who go to the general election. And now there's a possibility because of that, because there are so many Democrats, it could be that none of them garner enough votes, and we could even possibly see two Republicans face off in the fall. Now, as you see there on your screen, we've got folks like former Representative Katie Porter, current Representative Eric Swalwell, a former presidential candidate and billionaire Tom Steyer, all competing on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, we've got Sheriff Chad Bianco, who's been a real front runner on the right here. And there's still the possibility that more people, including a billionaire developer named Rick Caruso, who could enter the fray. What we know is that former Vice President Kamala Harris won't be running, current U.S. Senator Alex Padilla won't be running, and really that's left a lot of Californians saying, I'm not too sure about anybody in this field. 2026 will certainly be a wild ride, Errol.
Okay. Now, Susan, meanwhile, in New York, the success of Zohran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York City, has inspired a lot of other progressive candidates to run for Congress against moderates. What are some of the races that you're tracking?
Yeah, they're calling it Mamdani Mentum. There are multiple candidates who are, for example, rejecting contributions from AIPAC this cycle, which is quite a switch from the last cycle when, for example, George Latimer won a seat in Westchester, which is a suburb of New York City, against progressive incumbent Jamal Bowman. This cycle, Brad Lander, who is the city controller, is running against moderate Dan Goldman, who is the incumbent. Lander has the backing of the mayor-elect after endorsing him in the primary. Lander also has Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and socialists in the state legislature supporting him. The dean of New York's congressional delegation, Jerry Nadler, has announced his retirement, and several members of the assembly are running to replace him, including Michael Lasher and Alex Boris. And there are actually a whole bunch of people running, including JFK's grandson, Jack Schlossberg, and a survivor of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting in Florida, Cameron Kasky. Of these candidates, I think Boris and Kasky are the most progressive. It is said, though, that Lasher, who is more moderate and was a policy advisor to Governor Kathy Hochul, is considered the person that Nadler would like to inherit the seat. In upstate, Mike Lawler, who represents a purple district in the Hudson Valley, has was one of 4 Republicans Republicans to break ranks this week on the ACA subsidies and gender-affirming care. He has multiple challengers, Errol, and most of them are progressive.
Okay, very interesting. Curtis, in Ohio, finally, the race for governor is between a Democrat, Dr. Amy Acton, who led the state's COVID-19 response, and Republican Vivek Ramaswamy, a biotech entrepreneur. And there's also a couple of competitive Senate races that are shaping up. I see Republican Senator John Holstead, who took over for Vice President J.D. Vance, is being challenged by former Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who I guess is trying to make a comeback.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there are strengths and weaknesses for all of these candidates, as is normally the case. If you take a look at that Acton-Ramaswamy race, Acton, in the more recent Emerson College poll, now has a 1-point lead over Ramaswamy. That certainly is an advantage from where she was several months ago, but at the same time, you got over a third of the electorate that doesn't really know that much about her. If you look at Ramaswamy, he's got the Trump backing. Trump, of course, won this state 3 times, the last time by 11 points. However, he just had an op-ed in the New York Times in which he was calling out the groyperism that's existing now on the right, and that could kind of halt some of his momentum. He literally put out almost a call for help from other Republicans to start to kind of come out and denounce what is being seen here from the far right wing of the party now as it relates to this groyperism. If you look at that Husted and Brown race, of course, both men have some name recognition in the state. Husted was the former lieutenant governor before he took over for the seat of J.D. Vance. And of course, Sherrod Brown has been in the Senate a number of years and is now trying to get back. If you look at that race, health care is going to be a big issue.
Thank you all for all your contributions throughout the year. Thank you for your insights tonight. We're going to take a short break, but we're not done just yet. Coming up next, we will talk about what else we can expect next year, from major Supreme Court rulings to potential candidates considering a run for president in 2028. Stay with The Big Deal.
The stories that touch our border affect us all. That's why at Spectrum News Plus, we don't just cover these communities. Our dedicated reporting team also calls them home. That perspective allows us to take an in-depth look, going beyond the politics, to see the impact on people's lives and what it means for you and your community. Balanced border coverage that tells the full story here on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a hike. It's only made possible by Spectrum Business connecting healthcare providers of all sizes. Like hospitals relying on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network with industry-leading reliability. Practices keeping patient data safe with advanced security. Pharmacies accessing records in the cloud without fail. It's tailored connectivity solutions built for life-changing moments. It's only a hike. It's only everything. Spectrum Business.
There's nothing quite like the feeling of going to the theater. Onstage celebrates that excitement every week by taking you behind the scenes with the latest news and in-depth interviews of the hottest shows on and off Broadway. So grab a seat, because this is a show you won't want to miss. Join us Saturday nights at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central for Onstage.
Onstage is presented by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. Discover which Cadillac is right for you and elevate your journey.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan. Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
After just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined.
Thanks for staying with The Big Deal. That was part of President Trump's speech to the nation on Wednesday night, where he touted his administration's policies. The Supreme Court has emerged as a key player in allowing President Trump to enact key parts of his agenda. And the High Court is currently weighing some major cases that are tied to the Trump administration, with decisions set to come down next year. Joining me now with more on this is Spectrum News Chief National Political Reporter Josh Robin. Good to see you, my friend. And walk us through some of the major rulings we're expecting to see next year.
There are a bunch that have been argued already. I guess maybe at the top of everyone's list is birthright citizenship, where if someone is actually born here to parents who might be illegal or undocumented, whether that person is entitled under the Constitution to be an actual citizen. The Trump administration challenging that. Another one that's wonkier but really important is called Trump versus Slaughter. That has to do with whether the president has full control over agencies that are thought to be more independent, but are nonetheless nested in the executive branch. And a third one is on conversion therapy, whether that violates, whether bans on conversion therapy violates the First Amendment. There are a whole bunch of them, though. It's going to be a really interesting legal term.
Okay, very interesting. Now, and it's a little early, so I'll apologize in advance to some of our viewers, but it seems that Gavin Newsom is running for president of the United States, and he's not the only one. Who else is thinking about making a run in 2028?
Well, as you apologize to your viewers, I'll apologize to the people who I'm going to leave out, because as you and I know, if you are in politics, chances are you are thinking of, and you're at least thinking of running for the White House. But I brought down a whole bunch of names here. Kamala Harris, the former vice president and former Democratic nominee, definitely thinking about it, it's said. Rahm Emanuel, Andy Beshear, Josh Shapiro, Wes Moore, J.D. Pritzker. Those last four that I mentioned are all governors, Democratic governors. Also, perhaps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's quite possible, although maybe she'll run instead for Chuck Schumer's Senate seat. Pete Buttigieg, he ran for it before. One name who I thought would be really at the top of the list, but is seen as not running, at least now, is Gretchen Whitmer. Whitmer, she's the governor of Michigan. And, you know, if you notice a bunch of those names there really are not that many women candidates that we have seen. But again, it's quite early. On the Republican side, I should say that J.D. Vance has already got his first endorsement. That's from the widow of Charlie Kirk. He's obviously thinking about running the current vice president.
Very interesting. Moving on to a sad topic, the deadly shooting at Brown University was the latest of nearly 400 mass shootings that have occurred in the United States this year alone. Now, by comparison, the mass shooting in Australia was the first in that country in several years, and one of only a handful that have happened across 2 decades in Australia. Even though political leaders are now pledging to take up meaningful gun safety reforms, they haven't given up. Yet in our country, the prospects for similar actions appear remote. And why is that?
Well, it's a very long question that's been studied for a long time. We have a rich tradition of gun ownership in this country. There are more weapons in this country than there are people. There also, frankly, is less of a tradition of robust health care. You can argue that of why in, let's say, Australia, there are less of these mass shootings. One could argue, I'm not arguing, but it's been put out there that there's better treatment if you have mental illness. Americans are 26 times more likely to be shot and killed than in other high-income countries. And on average, 327 Americans are shot every day. 117 will die. 2 other things. The mass shootings or shootings themselves are actually down, at least at the early part of this year. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive. Still a lot of them. The other thing is that suicide really is a big problem when it comes to guns. It's not so much mass shootings. Those obviously get the most attention, but suicides are far more likely to be the result of people using guns in that type of way.
Okay. And of course, that takes us back to mental health. Thank you so much for being with us, Josh. Thanks for all your help this year. And we thank you for joining us for The Big Deal. We're off for the next 2 weeks for the holidays, but we'll be back on January 9th. Stay tuned to your local Spectrum station.
Friday nights, The Big Deal with Errol Lewis, where Spectrum News' local political journalists break down the most important issues shaping our nation.
Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a slice. It's only made possible by Spectrum, connecting businesses of all sizes, like small businesses, instantly serving up orders and inventory on the Spectrum Fiber broadband network. And factories, seamlessly connecting to farmers in the field with tailored solutions that always deliver. It's only a slice. It's only everything. Get your business free fiber-powered internet forever. Call to find out how.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app. Spectrum News Plus. Local stories, connecting communities. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app